Hello again. Welcome to the explanation of Yanagi Part 2. In this video, I'll go over the recent updates and explore what we can gain from these changes. I've also made some adjustments and taken various factors into the account for squads. So let's dive right in. With Yanagi's new changes, we can tell that she took a hit on her disorder damage multipliers. But does this mean she's bad? Or it's actually good? Actually, I wouldn't consider this a nerf, rather than a small adjustment. Her core passive took a hit, and her damage multipliers with disorder went from 600 to 400, and because of that change, Hoyoverse made sure that she functions with other team comps. Before the change, I wasn't considering talking about any teams that didn't have a second off-field elemental applier due to her restrictive passive, but with a new change, from her skill at least, she now gives a Polarity disorder, and to explain it briefly, Polarity disorder is basically a mini disorder that Yanagi does with her EX special. It considers 25% of the original disorder damage and adding 17% of Yanagi's anomaly proficiency. With this change, her window to seeing more squads in her team just became smoother and way more comfortable. As I mentioned earlier, I wouldn't dare to use Yanagi with any team that wasn't applying off-field element, just like Burnice as an example. But thanks to her changes, monoshock team with Yanagi is now possible, and even playable. Her damage seems quite fine and functions really well. With her new changes, she can now feel nice in monoshock teams, and feel smoother in other teams as well. Her disorder on top of the changes will not remove the target's existing elemental anomaly that is applied already. Her polarity disorder on top of the change will not remove the target's existing elemental anomaly that is applied. So her squad that is already applying or building up other elements can keep building up the anomaly status on enemies whenever Yanagi uses her special, or EX special. I've considered Grace and Rina to be functional in the same team, as they're not all buffing each other, but rather Rina providing as much pen ratio as possible. Just a small side note, if you're going to use Rina, keep in mind that the maximum pen ratio is 30%. That is of course from her core passive F, but since we cannot gain the full buff, we can gain either 29.6% pen ratio with her main weapon, or 28.6% without her weapon, and you're using Slice of Time instead. And with Yanagi Caesar Burnice team, the damage was pretty promising as well. It felt like it wasn't changed much, it just shaved off a couple of numbers. And with Yanagi Burnice Rina, the damage wasn't bad at all, to be honest. It felt like a fresh air being brought to the table. But what if I told you that we can play around in a particular way to make your Yanagi deal more damage with all three teams? Well, let's say I've considered something new, and that something new seemed pretty promising actually. Instead of using on the fifth piece her element, or electro for example, I considered using pen ratio, and well, the results looked very promising. With Reina's buff and the pen ratio providing you better damage in Reina Gray's team, Yanagi's damage increased very well actually. The damage difference was huge whenever Reina was in the team. However, when Reina wasn't in the team, let's just say the damage difference isn't huge, although still, the pen ratio was pulling ahead majority of the times. The teams that I've considered pulling ahead majority of the times was Yanagi Burnice and Rina, as they're all dealing great amount of damage. Yanagi Grace and Rina also managed to pull ahead as well. Although the performance wasn't promising, rather it was pretty much a result that was impossible to gain before her new changes. And in case you're wondering how the damage would look like against a stunned enemy, the damage difference jumps by miles. Yanagi, Burnice and Rina was still ahead of other squads, and dealing way more significant damage than Yanagi, Burnice and Caesar. Although, as I've mentioned earlier in the video, if you won't be using Rina in the squad, the damage difference between elemental and pen ratio is not that high, especially with Caesar and Burnice on the team. Still, the damage with pen ratio is pulling ahead, but slightly, not that much. The damage with Yanagi Grace and Rina was also pulling ahead, although keep in mind this is just showing an example, as on my previous video, the only character that managed to reach this high number of DPR and DPS was Yanagi with Jane Doe and Caesar. So, did the changes improve Yanagi's position, or hurt her standing with other teams? Honestly, I believe she's performing significantly better than recent agents. However, this doesn't guarantee her performance staying as it is, especially since the adjustments could be made after this video is released. I think Yanagi's full potential is still with Burnice and with Rina in the third slot. She's getting pretty much a full team already. If you're wondering whether she's worth pulling for, I genuinely see her thriving in the future. The game feels solid right now, and I don't expect Yanagi to fall behind. In fact, she seems likely to outshine previous anomaly agents due to the way Hoyoverse handling anomaly characters. which is designed to ensure smooth gameplay without using a stunner in the team. Overall, I know Yanagi will be ahead of Jane Doe in the long run, so if you're considering pulling her, she's going to be a great addition to your account. But till then, until her changes, we have reached the end. Hopefully I've earned your subscription today. If I didn't, let me know in the comment section below if I said anything wrong or I've made any mistake with my calculations. See you in the next one.